In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a CV axle on your Nissan Versa located on the left front side of your vehicle. Using a pry tool, you want to go ahead and remove our hubcap here. Go between the wheel and the cap and gently pry out. Work your way around. Pop that off and set it aside. Once you have that off, you can use a 22mm socket with your impact gun. Loosen and remove the lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, remove the wheel and set it aside. On the center right here, we have a cotter pin going through the end of our axle. So just going to use a pair of cutters here or pliers, and you want to straighten this out. If there's the other end of that cotter pin coming through, straighten that out as well. Now these pins are one-time use, so you want to go ahead and discard that. Let's remove the axle nut. Using a 30mm socket, loosen and remove this nut. I'm going to spray a little rust penetrant inside here into the splines for our axle. I'm going to let that set a couple of minutes here, and then we're going to use our dead blow hammer to hit this here to try and break that axle free from the splines in our hub. All right, that's stuck in there pretty good. I'm going to use my impact unit here to shock this a little bit. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses if this is your choice. I'm going to disconnect our outer tie rod. You use a pair of pliers or cutters. I'm going to bend back our cotter pin here and pull this out. Now, a cotter pin is a one-time use. You will have to source another one of these here. Just got to loosen the nut. Our particular nut here is a 5/8 nut. Yours might be a 15mm. Just got to loosen and remove that. Once you have that off, I'm going to go ahead and smack the knuckle right here. Be careful not to damage the boot. Swing that off to the side. On the top here, you're going to have your ABS wire coming up. It just presses in with these little rubber retainers into the strut itself. So be careful, but you want to go ahead and slide this out, and it goes around to the forward side. Same thing, just pop that out. I'm going to turn this, and on the upper side here, we have our brake flex hose here. It has a little horseshoe style retainer. We're going to use a flathead screwdriver. You can use a punch, a small chisel, but we're just going to tap this off. Pop that off, push that hose in, and pull it out. We're going to remove our two strut bolts here. It's a 21mm nut as well as a bolt head. We're going to put our wrench on the front. I'm going to remove the nut, but leave the bolt in there for now. Do the same on the bottom. Now what's going to happen when we pull these bolts out here, the knuckle is going to want to swing away. It's going to pivot on the lower ball joint. That is why we disconnected our brake flex hose here. We don't want to have any abnormal pressure pulling on the joints where they connect to the brake caliper or the hardline connection over here. I'm just rocking this back and forth to get that bolt to come out. If yours is stuck, you can go ahead and tap the end of that bolt there gently to get that to come out. You don't want to smash the end of that bolt. After this job is done, you want to have the vehicle brought down to a repair shop, have the alignment properly done to prevent abnormal tire wear. There we go. You can see this is dropping down. Now on the end here, we want to go ahead and we're going to tap on our CV axle to go ahead and push this through. All right, just work that axle out. Now I put a securing strap around our knuckle and I'm going to anchor this to our strut. That's going to keep any abnormal pressure from these hoses. Now underneath on the driver's side or the left-hand side of the vehicle, here's the transmission oil pan. And if you look up in here is the inside of that axle shaft itself going into the transmission. We're going to put a pry bar up between the transmission and here, and we're just going to gently pop that out. We're going to continue to do this here so we can just pop that out of the transmission, and there it is coming out. We want to make sure you have a catch can or a bucket underneath the vehicle itself because transmission fluid will come out. Let's go ahead and pull this out from the driver's side. Go ahead and grab that axle. And let's pull that out. And it's still stuck in there just a little bit, so I'm just going to continue that process with your pry bar. Get up underneath there. I'm just going to kind of give that a little bump. Now on the side of the transmission, right where this hole is a rubber seal that goes in there. You want to make sure that that is clean, so I'm going to use a rag, go around the perimeter of it, wipe that out. You want to do a visual inspection, check for any tears or anything like that that could be a potential leak down the road. If you need to replace that seal, now's the time to do it. Our seal is in good condition, so we're going to go ahead and install our axle. We want to go ahead and insert our CV axle into the transmission. I want to go ahead and feed this up and in. Fit that in. Now you're going to rotate that just a little bit. You're going to feel the splines engage into the transmission. Just look underneath, make sure everything is lined up nice. Now at this point here, most times you can't just push the axle in. This is where dead blow hammer is going to come in. You don't want to use a metal hammer because we're going to be smacking on the end of our axle here. We don't want to mushroom over the threads on the axle itself. You also want to try and get this as level as possible and pop it in. Now you're going to feel that axle slide into place and then bottom out. You're going to feel it stop when it hits the transmission itself. So your axle is installed in the transmission. Go ahead and grab that axle and fold that in and pull our knuckle up. What we're doing now is we're feeding this axle into the hub. We're going to work the knuckle up into our strut assembly here. I'm just going to pop one bolt in. That'll hold everything together. Now we can go ahead and remove our securing strap. Set that aside. I'm going to go ahead and throw our axle nut on the end here. Install your second lower bolt into the knuckle. Might just take a little bit of wiggling, put that in. Let's go ahead and throw the nuts on those bolts here. With these components installed here, let's go ahead and install our ABS wire. I'm just going to push the rubber grommets into the strut tabs here, and on the other side, bring our brake line through the strut assembly. We'll take our horseshoe tab here. Now it's shaped in a bow. We want to make sure that the bow is facing inward, not outward, because it won't apply pressure on there. Get that pushed on, and once that's started, go ahead and use your hammer and just tap that up and on. So now we have our flex hose anchored, our ABS wire anchored, our bolts are in here. We can go ahead and push our tie rod end through. Install the nut. Let's go ahead and secure our strut bolts. Torque down your strut bolts to 129 foot-pounds. Let's tighten down our tie rod nut here. Now I want to go ahead and torque this. Go ahead and torque down our tie rod nut to 25 foot-pounds. Make sure that you source a new cotter pin for this here. You do not want to reuse the other one. Insert the cotter pin. I'm going to grab one of the ends, fold it over, tap it over, and cut off the excess. Let's go ahead and tighten down our axle nut. Now we want to go ahead and torque down our axle nut. This needs to get torqued to 83 foot-pounds. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab that, rotate it. I'm going to grab a couple of our lug nut studs here, or bolts. I'm going to grab a couple of the lug nuts here, and I'm going to thread two of them on. Not going to tighten them, just want them to be seated. Our next step is we're going to use a pry bar here. Now I'm going to use this as leverage. The lug nuts are here to protect the threads on the studs. And our pry bar is going to be used as a stopper here. So let's get this on here. I'm going to use a pry bar and go ahead and torque. Once you're torqued into position, go ahead and remove the lug nuts. set those aside. Let's go ahead and grab a new cotter pin here. We're going to slide this on through. Bend that on over. Tap that, and then we'll cut off the excess. Once you have this completed, go ahead and install your wheel. Let's go ahead and install your wheel. Install the lug nuts. We're going to get all 4 of them started by hand. Spin those on a few threads. By doing this here and not just zipping them on with the impact gun will prevent cross-threading of the threads. With all 4 of them started, let's go ahead and snug them down. Let's torque down the lug nuts to 83 foot-pounds. Now, if you're installing your center cap or hub cap here, you want to go ahead and go around the perimeter and locate the notch for the valve stem. Locate the valve stem on the wheel. Line that up first. Once that's lined up, go ahead and gently work your way around the perimeter, locking this on. On the front here, I'm going to go ahead and use our trim tool. We want to pop up these buttons right here. Set those aside. I want to go ahead and lift this up. I want to pull all of this out. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use my screwdriver here. We just want to kind of open up these little tabs and separate this here. With that separated, take out this whole unit and wiggle this up and out. Set that aside. Now that we have that portion of the air intake box removed, I'm going to go ahead and locate our transmission dipstick tube right here. This goes into our CVT transmission. You're going to grab that, pull it out, and have a towel. And what we want to take a look at, I'm going to give this a wipe. And on here, there's a cross hatch section that we want to keep that fluid into. It was down to the next tab down here that has a notch. It is low, so we want to make sure that when we fill up or top off our transmission, it is inside the mark with the section with the cross hatching in it. So we're going to put this back in. We need to start up the vehicle, get the transmission fluid up to operating temperature. So we just go back from warming up the vehicle, and right here we are down quite a bit. That's probably roughly a good 1.5 quarts or so of fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe this. Set that aside. Put our funnel in, and we're going to use some specific CVT transmission fluid. And we're going to go ahead and add this fluid. Now what you're going to want to do at home is at this point here, pull the funnel, put the dipstick back in, start up the vehicle. With it in park, come back out, use the dipstick, check that fluid. With it running, in park, check the fluid. You want it to be warm. We've already done this here. I know that it's going to take about 1.5 quarts to go ahead and fill up the system. Then we'll start up our vehicle and double check just like you would do at home. Go ahead and remove that funnel, put in your dipstick, and go ahead and fire it up. Let it run for a few minutes, and then check it again. So we have our vehicle running. It's been warmed up. I'm going to go ahead and pull that tube. You want to go ahead and wipe this down. Put it back in, and we're going to go ahead and check that fluid, make sure that we are inside those cross hatch marks there. Yep, we're right where we need to be. Go ahead and reinstall this here. Let's go ahead and reinstall the rest of our air intake box here. Now when we install this unit here, there are 2 pins you need to install. There's this larger one on the top right here, and the one at the very bottom right here. So I'm going to feed this down inside. Once that's in, I want to go ahead and line this up here, push that in, and I'll just snap into place, push that down. Once those 3 points of contact are locked in, the bottom, this here, and this intake port right here, we can go ahead and install our 2 plastic locking buttons right here. Install your plastic retainer buttons.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.